And hi, everybody. This is Joe Morrison with the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. We appreciate you being here. We're joined by the awesome KEDA team, as always, Kathy Kokis, who's going to handle some of our Q&A, and Teresa Mangrum, who is in the background, moving slides, recording things, making sure things happen, and marketing this digital event. We appreciate them. So today we're talking about workforce, and this is a pervasive issue that is cross-industry. We recently heard from Naval Base Kitsap that there are over 120 open positions at Naval Base Kitsap. I've separately heard individually that if you're certified as a welder, there is significant demand for your skill sets here in Kitsap. There's a lot of need. And of course, I think we've all seen the needs, the offers for work at local restaurants. Things are changing suddenly, and part of this disruption we've all lived with is the disruption to the traditional workforce that has been kind of rock solid for decades in the United States. We have two experts we're going to hear from, the great Monica Blackwood of West Sound Workforce, and who is a past KEDA board chair and is a valued member of our executive committee. She's with West Sound Workforce. Mike Robinson, who is with WorkSource right in Silverdale, Washington. And I think their doors are either open or opening soon. And Mike will tell you all about that and what's happening at the Employment Security Department. So we'll hear from these two folks on not just the issues at hand, but what you can do and what's within your power to secure workforce. And I think the preview is it's different from what we've been doing. In the world of KEDA, this is something that we recently put out. Our marketer, Teresa, put this out on the street, as it were. And it is a request for proposals for diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the joys of this job was coming to this role in October of last year and already having a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force set up to look at how KEDA does its work, the populations that KEDA works with, and how we represent what our community looks like at leadership and board levels. We're getting really serious about this, and it's vital to our future that we find the right DEI consultant who can engage with us at the leadership level to make sure we're executing on this type of economic development, and that everything we do involves what we call a DEI lens. So if you know somebody, this is my personal request, please ask them to respond to this RFP or get in touch with KEDA. And the website will be posted in the chat shortly. We've also, in partnership with Western Washington University, posted our top employers for 2020. We will make a side note, this was difficult to do post-COVID. And of course, some of that is related to the workforce discussion we're having today. There was a lot of contraction, there was a lot of expansion, really different things happening in workforce. But the 2020 report is out, and take a look at it and let us know what you think. It's this important data that we produce every year. We've done this 5 years with Western Washington University. In the world of access to capital, I believe that loans of up to $150,000, 3.5% to 5%, I want to say, are available for businesses that have been directly affected negatively by COVID. This is called the Small Business Flex Fund. So take a look at that online. We will find the link to that. It's probably, oh, there it is, smallbusinessflexfund.org. If you need more capital to accomplish what you need to accomplish with your business, go check that out. It's an effort of the Washington State Department of Commerce. Now, I'm going to be quiet and let's hear from Monica Blackwood talking about workforce. Thanks, Monica, for joining us today.
Sure thing. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, KEDA, for putting this on, and I'm pretty excited to share some of the insights that I might have, although I will tell you that there is no magic bullet. I'm sorry to disappoint you on that. I am going to share my screen right now and get started on going? There we go. Get started on the information that I can share with you guys today. So workforce struggles, it's real post-pandemic, and it's not fun. Sorry, but I will try and be rosy where I can be and real where it is most appropriate as we go through this. But that's what we're going to talk about today. So to kind of paint a picture of how did we get here, before COVID, we had a worker shortage problem. It might be hard to remember back then, even though it was only 18-20 months ago. But it's true. We were facing a workforce population shortage size because frankly, there aren't as many kids that are growing up because families are smaller in size. And so therefore they're not getting the numbers of people into the workforce. Simultaneously, more jobs are being created than the number of people there are. At least in the realm of the workforce age and the workforce capacity. And so before COVID, we were already facing a shortage. On top of that, we had boomer retirement happening, and people were exiting the workforce because, you know, they had worked their 20, 30, 40 plus years already, and they were looking for a new chapter in their life to retire. And then, of course, before COVID, we still had a care issue. We had childcare and elder care issues that also affected our workforce, and it's doing more so now, of course. So COVID came along. That, of course, created issues around worker and workplace safety. The care aspect that I mentioned was exacerbated. And more people than just the boomers, but more people decided to retire and exit the workforce completely. So, so that's where COVID comes into play. And then work from home. There was a resistance prior to COVID. Think back 2019, employers were resisting work from home, and it was very limited. And a lot of times, people were told, no, that wouldn't work. Then COVID came along and made it work, obviously. And so now reality going forward is that there are expectations set for both companies and employees, and adjustments are going to be needed to be made. Whether or not this is an appropriate thing for your culture and for the jobs that you have and so forth, that is something that you guys are going to need to each individually determine whether it fits into your organization or not. So there's that. So kind of the struggles that we hear employers are facing a lot of the time, finding employees. Are people even applying to your jobs? If they're applying and you call for interviews, are they answering their phone? Are they answering their email? Are they answering their text messages? As to even setting up an interview, I know there's a lot of struggles with that. And then, of course, there's ghosting. You think you make connection with someone because they have applied and they responded back in some way saying, yes, please, let's interview. I'd be really interested. Or even they've gone to the point where they're open to actually coming on board, and you get ready because you think you have a new employee, and then all of a sudden that first day comes and they're nowhere to be seen. So they have completely ghosted. It's a real struggle for sure, but making sure that finding employees is a way to go about kind of reaching into new populations and so forth. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Wages, PUA. Now, most people don't know what PUA is. This is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It's also known as that extra unemployment benefit, but it does have a technical name, and it's abbreviated as PUA. This is information, or this is funding, of course, that went above and beyond what individuals would normally receive. Early on, it was $600 a week. Then it changed to about $300 a week. And there's a lot of information about whether or not that is affecting workplace or affecting individuals being able to look for a job and so forth. So there's aspects to that. Care, I mentioned already, but employers were facing issues with workers having to care for employees, right? We had several people who called and said, you know what, I can't work anymore during COVID because I live with my elder mom or my grandma, and I'm responsible for caretaking for that person, and I can't expose them through me being at work, right? So care was a huge issue that kind of exasperated under COVID. Before, it wasn't just a matter of having somebody to care for them, but it was also a safety issue, which then gets into, of course, individuals during COVID were very concerned about their workplace safety. So you want to make sure that you are that you have attention played to that. Please make sure that your COVID safety plan is on display and it's a living document, right? You actually follow through with it. Employees are still scared and they're making sure that you are following your protocols, and that's imperative, and they will make reports, and word gets out on the street really quickly about whether or not you are taking employee safety seriously. So take those questions and concerns, investigate them, make the changes that are needed, and most importantly, not most importantly, but definitely part of closing that circle is to circle back with those individuals who raised the questions and let them know what you found, what you're doing to make the change. You know, if it's a disciplinary issue with somebody else because they weren't following it, obviously you can't go into details about that sort of stuff, but make sure that those who have raised the concerns understand that action has been taken, because that's huge. Just another example of this kind of struggle. We had one employer who had an employee who was so worried about their safety that they were going to quit, right? But through conversation, and it took a couple of days, but through conversation, it turns out that simply setting up a sanitation station right next to that person's workspace, which it was in a manufacturing production facility, but you know, they set a little table out with hand sanitizer and some wipes and things. They just created a safety sanitation station right next to that person's workspace. That eased him enough so that he didn't quit. And so solutions can be simple if you're thinking about it and taking it seriously. So that's just one of the things that, one example that I mentioned. So kind of leading into that, what can be done, right? Retention is the first aspect that you want to pay attention to, because you want to retain the employees that you have. It's really difficult to fill the positions that you have open already, but you don't want to create more positions because you're losing people right and left. So the first part is appreciation, and this may or may not be in the form of cash value, right? A lot of people talk about giving bonuses and stay bonuses and retention bonuses and all of that sort of stuff, but it might not be just that. Maybe food is the way to your employees' hearts, and so you set up an ice cream party in the break room for each shift, right? Or you give them a gift certificate to go somewhere and eat or spend time with their family. You can make appreciation fun and a little nerdy. There are some great socks out there. As an example, I had some fun with our employees here and gave out some fun, really fun socks that said, you know, not your average employee, and it was pretty cool because it went along with tacos and things that people really enjoy here at the office. So so it can be fun and nerdy too, and very simple. Or maybe it's just, closing your office or your facility for an unexpected extra day off, or even a half a day off, if at all possible, because time is just as important and valuable as the money is in lots of ways. And frankly, a lot of people are facing burnout too. So there's the opportunity to really show that you are taking care of employee health with respect to burnout and so forth. I talk about have their back. This is something that we've heard a couple of times. If you have policies in place for customers, clients, and visitors, which you should around COVID, but this expands more to just COVID. But like, say, for instance, everybody that comes into your facility has to wear a mask. You don't know whether or not they've been vaccinated and so forth, so they have to wear a mask. Make sure you back up your employees when they're trying to enforce these policies. I've heard a couple of stories where employees have been trying to enforce the policy and management or leadership come along and say, oh no, that person's fine, I know them, they don't have to do that. Well, you've just completely undermined your policy, for one, and you haven't shown support and appreciation for the fact that your employees are trying to do what you've lined out for them to do. So it's kind of crazy, I know, but make sure you have their backs. Training and development for retention is huge. This is of course formal and informal. Gen Z especially is looking for that face-to-face interaction. And a lot of our employees that are entering the workforce are Gen Z. Give information to them daily, for instance. Tell them a small aspect of the business and teach them about it. It might be a 5-minute or 10-minute conversation. You're not asking them to do it necessarily, but let them learn the bigger picture and how it all goes together. That goes a long way. Formally, of course, there are so many webinars and online things to do. There's the ability to give an hour here and there, or more regularly to those who seek it out, or to those who you give an idea to. I had an employee come to me and say, hey, I used to be part of a Toastmasters organization and they're starting up their meetings again and I'd really like to go. She wanted to shift her hours, 1 hour on Thursdays so that she could go and do this. And you know what? I can make that happen. 1 hour is okay. And so she tacked on the hour to the back of her work day, which is fine. But make sure that you're exploring those opportunities or putting seeds in people's minds about the opportunities where they might be able to learn and develop on their own. On the recruitment side, so this is going out and actively trying to find people. Employer brand is kind of the first thing, and it's also why I started the slide with retention, because this is your reputation as a place of work, created by the perception of internal and external talent. So you want to have your retention policies and your retention aspects kind of in order so that you can start focusing on your employer brand. It's a reflection of how you retain people, and the things that you tout are often lived through this. So you want to give specific examples. Give an outsider a glimpse into what you're about, and it's kind of that storytelling aspect. Another way to go about looking at what your employer brand is currently and what and areas where you might be able to adjust is go and check out the reviews that you get as an employer. This could be on Glassdoor, on Fairly Good Boss, Indeed, Vault, Career Bliss, Nunu, and even on Yelp. Yelp is, obviously often used for restaurants and things, but it is also used for employer aspects. And so there's a great wealth of information. The information, of course, may or may not be true, but it is the perception of the person who posted it. So, so there's a kernel of knowledge there that you can take and go with. So it's kind of important. Culture, talk about too. This influences your employer brand. It's what is it that you want your organization to stand for within or even outside its literal or figurative walls. How are people treated? How do they get their work done? How do they excel? What information is shared by the company and to whom? What are the expectations of the roles and how are these expectations upheld? All of these things, again, they're not quick aspects, but they are things that are going to, in a longer picture over the course of a couple of months, really can make an impact on how you are bringing people into the workforce and recruiting them and also keeping your employees. So back to culture, core values is often a great place to start. Be honest about it. If truly it really is about the bottom line, be clear about it and honest, and let them know, let employees know how their contributions may affect it and what the rewards might be. You know, an example is share the financials and the stability of the organization regularly. I do this here in our office on a weekly basis because we get financial numbers weekly. I know other organizations that do it on a quarterly basis, and it's, you know, a 5-minute conversation usually. Sometimes it's more, but it really does give employees an idea of where they're at and their contributions to the bigger picture of what it might be. And don't shy away, just because one of the big things is making money as an organization. Don't shy away from that. It can be a positive thing too, obviously. Make sure that the actions of leadership support the culture that you expect to have. And again, use names with specific examples wherever possible, because it's about the storytelling. In another company that I know, mentoring was a huge important thing. And, you know, going back to what Gen Z is, what the data is showing about Gen Z with wanting the face-to-face interactions, mentoring goes hand in hand with that. So there was a woman who didn't want leadership. She had 30 years of experience. She didn't want a leadership role and was fine being one of those steady, strong workers within the organization. But it meant a great deal to her when she was asked to be part of the mentoring process so that she could share her knowledge. So again, keeping a culture going. Let's talk about job descriptions and job ads. Here's another aspect of the recruitment process that is keenly important. Making sure that you've actually reviewed your job description in the last 10 years. Hopefully you've done it in the last year, because it doesn't get done often, honestly. It doesn't get done here often. It doesn't get done in other organizations often, but it is truly important. And those job descriptions, you know, the actual words that are put on that page mean something, and they might not be true anymore. The organization has evolved, the position has evolved, operations have evolved. So go back and review and make sure, go word by word, and make sure that that it's been updated. In here, it might spell out some very specific requirements for being suitable for that job. You know, does it really require 5 years of experience to do XYZ job? Probably not. And the opportunity that you're going to get somebody that has 5 years of experience doing that specific skill is probably rather minimal at this point in time. So take a look at that. Does it require a bachelor's degree? Does it really require a bachelor's degree? Is there a certificate that somebody could get that would give them at least a step in with some of the skill sets that they might be able to build on and succeed in this role? And then of course there's lived and worked experience that goes along with that that education as well. Another thing to think about for the job ad, which is different than the job description. The job ad is the thing that you post up trying to get people to apply for you for your job. Is that too wordy? In general, most job ads should be about 200 words. That's the amount of time that and attention that you're going to get from individuals seeking information. In those 200 words, you want to have a way for people to find out more, and often that includes, like a link to the job description, or a link to expand more, to get more information. Also make sure, because this happens a lot, make sure that there's a call to action, a way for people to follow up with you. So many times I see job ads out there and it's a great job ad, but then somebody forgets to put the phone number in, or how would somebody apply? It's just not there. So make sure that that information is in there. And of course, as linguistics go, the choice of words are also very important. So because you have a job ad that's 3 years old and you think it might be okay, you might take a look at that, because the way that words have been put together over the last year or so, and the way that different cultures and different organizations or different areas of our country look at the words that are used, or even genders, you can use gender coder as an example too. That may or may not restrict the number of people who are actually going to apply for your job because of the language that is used, the words that are used in that job description or the job ad. So moving on pretty quickly, another aspect, compensation package. Okay, yes, I'm talking about wages as part of this. Workers are demanding more. There's just no two ways about that. They won't apply if wages are too low. If you're using, as an example, you're used to using minimum wage plus tips, and you're not getting applicants, you might want to consider changing that up. The old ways of doing things are not necessarily going to get us anywhere anymore. We've got to be flexible as employers. So maybe you have to pay more, but maybe that means the tips don't go on top of that hourly wage. Maybe they go into a fund, and that's your now training and development fund for employees. I don't know. I just know that we have to sit down. Each employer has to sit down and take a look at their compensation package and how they're paying people and what they're paying people and how they fund the different pockets that go into the compensation package. I want to encourage you though to actually talk about a compensation package as opposed to just the hourly wages, because there's more to the value of what you're giving an employee than just their 15 or 18 or $20 an hour position or whatever it is, their salary. So that aspect where you say hourly plus benefits in your job ad, give a value to those benefits. What's the actual value of the retirement part that you're doing? What's the actual value of your benefits and so forth? And explain it that way to people. We kind of talked about training and development already. Same as retention, do it in recruitment. Talk about what you're doing on a retention side of things as a recruitment tool to draw people in. And then continue to carry forward the innovation and flexibility. We've had to adjust and readjust so many times during this last 18 months, and it's really tiring, but it's also necessary to keep going. Keep it going in your recruitment practices. Try anything to get people. Think about schedules of positions that might be full-time in your ideal, but does it have to be? Can you have somebody do 2 days a week and then somebody else says, oh yes, I want to do 2 days a week? It's really important. And also kind of in this category and going back to working from home, I just want to say that there are there's quite a bit of information over the last 18 months about working from home and how it's affected employees and employee culture and all of that sort of stuff. And many job seekers are asking about work from home opportunities. The reality is only 42% of all jobs in any industry are actually able to be done remotely full-time. The other 58% have to be done on site in some way, maybe 100%, but maybe not. So maybe there's a way to figure out how to do some of the work remotely and some on site, kind of be flexible with that. But also it's an opportunity, if somebody's bringing it up, it's an opportunity to get to the real reasoning behind the desire for work from home, which might also lead to some ideas of how to accomplish the end goal. There's another aspect to care that I forgot to mention that I want to bring up right now that we're seeing with childcare specifically, but also with elder care. We've been having people start on their job seeking process. They've been applying, and then all of a sudden they realize that, you know, they don't have summer childcare. They don't, all the camps are filled up and all of that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden that emotional wall, the tiredness that we've all felt over this period of time comes back into play, and they shut down. They don't even want to have a conversation about adding the complexity of employment on top of their already frazzled schedule, and making sure that their loved ones are cared for. So with respect to care, even if things start to loosen up, I don't see a lot of people coming back into the workforce until school gets into session, because I think that's going to be more of a typical what we are comfortable with schedule, and people will be coming back to that. But until
Monica,
yeah,
we need to wrap.
Yeah, I'm done.
You're done. Thank you.
Yeah, that was it. There we go. There's my.
All right, there's our contact info.
What happened to my name?
And no one has any questions. And I was just jotting a few things down. And for me to sum it up, it's all about being appreciative and honest, knowing what your culture is, determining if that's what you really want, and fixing it if it's not, being flexible, and how to look forward, because we cannot go backward.
Yeah, and I think all of that is summed up through communication, honestly.
So communication, encourage open communication with your employees and supervisors and each other.
Yep.
Okay, super. Still no questions, so there might be some more at the end. Lots of stuff to unpack there. So we will go on to Mike, who's getting his PowerPoint up.
All right, thanks, Kathy. And hi, everyone. So I'm Mike Robinson, local administrator with Employment Security Department at WorkSource Kitsap, and I serve Kitsap, Clallam, Jefferson counties. And so some of the information I'm going to share with you will mirror quite a bit of what Monica has gone over. Not to repeat it, but more refresh and different perspectives on them as well. So when you are looking at what you've done in your recruiting efforts today compared to 15 months ago, what are you doing differently? Are you taking a DEI and BIPOC into consideration? You know, what is the message that the reader gets out of your job ad? And you know, just here's another perspective. Monica and I jotted this down. Monica had mentioned the job ad. I would say look at that as your opportunity to sell your positions to the customer. Okay, so that's your cover letter to the customers. So keep that in mind. And what is that message? What is your company culture? Does it come out? Have somebody review your job ads, and I would say look internally, because if you really claim that your company culture is important and it supports everything that you value, ask your current employees, does this match what we're selling? Because as Monica had mentioned, that perspective is already out there. Work-life balance, safety, security, totally important, significant impact in the service industry, retail and hospitality. So, and now they're booming back, but they need the people. Monica spoke about the generational gap. It's huge nationwide. Annually, we were on pace for throughout the nation around 1.4 to 1.5 million boomers would retire in a typical year. It doubled in 2020. And in an area, particularly like Kitsap County, where we have a huge employer being Department of Defense, that creates opportunity from within. So you're going to have a lot of people who've watched and wanted to move up. Those opportunities are now on pace because we've got folks retiring. And then there are people that just said, you know what, it's definitely time to retire. I don't want to, deal with this COVID stuff. And so now we have all these openings. And I really want to emphasize the skills gap. And I know Monica talked about this, but that 5 years experience or a degree, really ask yourself, is that needed? Do an analysis of the position description and see if all of that really holds true. So what I'd like to talk about is how WorkSource can help you solve some of those problems. WorkSource is, as you know, is a community asset. There's no cost to our services for both the employer and the job seeker. So the information I'm going to share are just some examples of things that we can do and that we are doing. And I think Joe had talked about our being back in the office. We are in the office. We've been working virtually the whole time, but we are now back in our office. Our doors we're sort of open. It's by appointment only, but for businesses, it's pretty easy to contact us through phone and email. Generally, stopping by. Most businesses don't do that, but we're certainly welcome to. So WorkSource WA, that is part of the services that we offer. The way that you access that is you need to register using a SAW account, and once you do that, and it takes about 24 hours, could take up to 2 days for that authorization to go through. Your SAW account, again, that's your Secure Access Washington. So if you're an employer on here, chances are you have one. It's what you pay your taxes and L&I and paid family medical leave, all those taxes and services you're paying for the state of Washington. What you get with that is you get to post your jobs at no cost. The job board is created by Monster Solutions. So you really get a Monster product. So if you're paying for a version of Monster or some other online ad service, here you've already paid for this. So why not use it? You get to recruit and look for your next candidate. And the other thing that you get with using WorkSource is real people, and the real people that are working with the community. It's a very easy process to register. It's 3 steps. It says it takes 15 minutes, but if you have all your administrative details such as your FEIN or UBI and your SAW account access, it'll take less than 5 minutes to get through all that. And then once you get through, you'll be able to search resumes and manage your job postings. We've got tutorials on that will show up in your profile once you do have access. You'll be able to use the applicant matching process. There's screening questionnaires, which that's another thing to consider is how are you doing your recruiting? Do you have questionnaires, and do those questionnaires match what you say your company culture is? Again, everything's tied together. You can manage your candidates from here, and we can also help with that. You can also search whether a customer may have identify themselves as an individual with a disability, veteran status. And the other great feature that you get with this is you have access to monster resumes as well. And there's no cost there. So, just a quick cost analysis here. The benefits of using WorkSource WA are pretty straightforward, everything I've already mentioned. But, back in 2020, when we did a review of what it takes to post a position on any of these are pretty stellar name brand career boards, you could see the price difference. And I would just say WorkSource WA is part of the solution, not the solution. We're just part of it. And so Monica touched on, looking at the non-traditional job seekers. And so here's an example. We refer to this as hidden talent, right? These are folks that are often marginalized or have difficulty finding employment. For some, it's just simply part of a systemic problem that has been generational. For others, it's an ability or a disability that has been part of their life and learning to move through. And I think we're at a junction where we need to look at all places where people are looking and willing to work. They may not fit the old paradigm of what you're looking for in a candidate, but the skill sets that this list of people have, I can find incredibly talented people to solve lots of workforce problems. And the beauty of this is, if you consider looking into these areas of folks, there's work opportunity, there's incentives, there's work opportunity tax credits, and there's bonding that can be done. And those are things that will help you make those great hires. Certainly a lot of the things that Monica talked about with the training and development, all that's going to be super relevant, but you got to know where to look for these people, because traditional job ads don't always catch their eye. And so where can you find that? Obviously with WorkSource, and a lot of the resources that the areas that I'm pointing here are really part of the WorkSource program. And I'm just going to cover them real briefly. So at Employment Security Department, we have our Jobs for Veteran staff. They can help you locate veterans. They work with veterans. They work with the VA. They work with veteran service organizations. We've got a local veterans employment rep. His whole position is to help businesses understand the value of hiring veterans, and, by the way, veteran spouses. We've got partnerships with Washington State's DSHS DVR, vocational rehabilitation, where they work with individuals that have disabilities, and Department of Services for the Blind are the same. And they too have job developers within their organizations that we work with. Olympic College and our K through 12 system, it's a gold mine. You've got CTE, the career tech educators, the counselors that are providing these job skills to our youth. They are in some cases ready to take that next step and possibly fill in some of your needs. Somewhere around 11th grade, 12th grade, depending on what you're looking for. I can tell you firsthand, I've gotten to witness the incredible teaching and environment that they get at West Sound Workforce, CK School District, and I mean, all the school districts have some form of CTE. I would encourage you to get in touch with those CTE educators. If you're looking for talent, they have them. We've got reentry services, individuals that perhaps had a run-in with the justice system, and they are looking to make themselves better. That is a group of folks that have multiple barriers, but somebody could easily be in this group of people who are really trying to make a difference and an impact. And we really, philosophically, if we want to make our communities safer, we need to help these people along and coach them and be able to allow them to grow. And so, and I'm sure some of you may be thinking, well, that seems like a pretty big risk. And that's where that work opportunity tax credit and the bonding comes into place, where you get a little peace of mind that that there's some protections there. We've got our youth program here within WorkSource, where they work specifically with youth that have some type of barrier, but they're really trying to make themselves better and productive in life. So most of their youth are ready to work within a few months of our case managers working with them. We've got our dislocated worker and adult worker programs. Those are programs that are funded by the federal government, that come through the state and county down to us. And we provide support services and career counseling. A lot of times they end up doing some type of certification, or even in a degree program. And in some cases, we actually partner with the college, and they work with the worker retraining program, and combined with the dislocated worker, you get a well educated and trained job seeker ready to fill your needs. These are folks that we're working with currently. When we talk about DEI and BIPOC, this is the perfect opportunity to start looking at community resources and nonprofits. Reach out to your library, to KRL, Kitsap Regional Library. They are working with community members just as WorkSource is. And again, these are pockets of where we can find people who are ready to go to work. They just need that opportunity. And I will say, I know Monica had mentioned, in September with the youth returning back, going back to school. And I know many of you are looking forward to the PUA going away by September. But we have already reinstituted our reemployment services eligibility assessments. Those are where we call in the traditional UI claimants and make sure that they are following their job search activity, which is now mandated as of the 1st of January. And so part of that also is there is work that employers can do when it comes to that. If you want more information on how you can ensure you're protecting the UI process, I can give some feedback later on. But again, they are working with job seekers and active claimants who need to do their job search, and in many cases, they are ready to go to work. But as we've talked about, there is a fear of returning to work, and people have been kind of disconnected for the last 15 months. So even they have to learn how to look for work and what is relevant in a job search. Just a little perspective here, and that accessing the hidden talent talent pool you should build that into your strategic hiring and succession planning, and take an opportunity. Does it match your culture? It does require a shift in where you look and how you interview, the whole process. So you will need to peel back the onion, so to speak, and look at the layers of your process. And then keep in mind when you are interviewing candidates that being out of the work environment for so long, people could be struggling with their interviewing. And of course, we work with job seekers to help them prepare for that. But I would recommend making your interviewing more conversational versus just question and answering and very stiff. Lighten it up, and I think that'll help the job seekers realize that it's that you actually are what you say you are, if you're putting it in your job announcements. And then focus on the skills, not the experience and education, and look at the candidate's willingness to learn. Try not to be so we used to be really particular on resumes and cover letters, and to a degree we still are. It's our first look. But if there's a typo, really is that an indication of that person? Probably not. It's just an indication that, guess what, they're human and they made a mistake. And I think we've all been there. In fact, I probably have one in my slide here. So just seek to understand and reflect. Does the candidate meet your needs? So some of the things that we could do here with our services at WorkSource, we're multiple organizations, but on the business services side, we are supported by Employment Security Department and the Olympic Workforce Development Council, and we can provide you with great labor market information. We can get it down to the occupation and our county level. We have statewide reports, so you can compare what you're doing and are you following industry standards. We can help you with your recruiting resources. We are certainly not equipped to take over your HR, but we are certainly equipped to help you with your HR services, particularly in recruiting, not just with the job posting and the candidates, but we can also help with reviewing and pre-screening. We can help you, as I mentioned, the work opportunity tax credits. So those are work opportunity tax credit is a tax credit that you'll receive should you hire an individual that is listed within what we refer to as our WIOA 14, which is it's a population group of individuals that would be highlighted in the hidden worker. So for example, an individual that is low income or has been out of the labor force for an extended period of time and had received unemployment, basically you're just it'll get, there are various tax credits, so I can't give you an exact amount in this setting, but we will have that available offline. Veterans, certain veterans are eligible for tax credit. Individuals with disabilities. The federal bonding, that certainly is meant to support individuals that are justice involved, but it can also help that first-time worker. And if you're concerned about a person's character and you want to access the free bonding, we can help you get set up with that. And many have actually taken advantage of the shared work program, which helps you retain your workforce. I know that here where we're at with COVID is kind of uncertain. We're back to the office, we're back to business, but as we're seeing in the news, we're seeing upticks. And so what if we get high numbers again? And what if we have to go back to where we were? Shared work would be the perfect place to be able to retain your workforce, have ESD pay part of those wages, you pay the other part of those wages, and retain that employee. And those are just some examples of things that we can help you with. And recruitment resources, we can help with supplemented wages through some work-based learning, such as on-the-job training or work experiences. That is through our adult dislocated worker program, and the youth program also provides that service. We can
Hey,
provide.
Mike, I want to say thanks so much, and I'm sorry to be so brusque, but I know we want to hear from Jamie Forsyth with the Small Business Development Center, and we really value everybody's time. So, Mike, last 30 seconds, what do you got? Sorry to do this.
Nope, I'll make everything available, and we'll have our contact information to continue supporting our community.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. Thanks to you. Thanks to Monica. There are emails in the chat and ways to get in touch with these folks if you need their expert opinions. Let's go to, I'll talk about next month in a second, but it's this easy. Long-term care insurance is headed for Washington employers like a major issue freight train. That's what we're talking about next month, along with the importance of cybersecurity insurance. Join us. It's really important. Let's move on to Jamie Forsyth, our partner at the Small Business Development Center. Jamie, what's going on?
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for that surprise, that surprise ping. I didn't know I was going to be doing this, but I would just say that basically this is an issue for everybody. You know, some people are coming up with creative ways to deal with it. I'm happy to sit down with anybody one-on-one. The other thing is I've been going door to door in Bremerton and Poulsbo, and we'll be doing it in Port Orchard to make sure that people are aware that they're in these low income areas. And if they haven't applied for the targeted EIDL, still available, the employee retention tax credit. A lot of people, even CPAs, don't know about that. It's an opportunity. And I would just say, if anything has piqued your interest that I just said in the last 20 seconds, please just reach out. You know, happy to go over with what you're doing with your business and you know, where I can help you, what you need most now.
So as a reminder to everybody on the call, Jamie's services are no fee. They're not free. There's a substantial portion of our community that invests in the Small Business Development Center, but they do not cost individual businesses anything. Jamie, help us out a little bit with the EIDL targeted advance. The basic thing here is that there are some parts of Kitsap that do not qualify, but a lot of Kitsap does. And if you own a business in this zone and you haven't had an EIDL, you are eligible for one. Is that how it works?
So
and when's the deadline?
It's a little bit crazy. Well, it's always, the deadline is always until the money runs out, you know, so it's ASAP. But what I would say is what you have to do, if you didn't apply for an EIDL before, if you're in these areas of Poulsbo, Port Orchard, or Bremerton, Bangor Naval Base, those are the only areas that qualify, because you first have to qualify as what the SBA has designated as a low income area, which may not make sense, you know, to any of us, you know, Poulsbo, talking to you.
But it is what it is.
Yep. But it is what it is. But what you have to do is you actually have to apply for the economic impact disaster loan, EIDL, you know, as we call it. You have to apply for that loan, even if you're not going to take the loan, in order to get the application to apply for the targeted EIDL, which is a grant of up to $10,000. And from there, and it depends on having at least 30% revenue loss that you can document. And if you have at least 50%, you're eligible for another $5,000 on top of that. The money is going quickly. Again, if it all sounds interesting, I talk too fast to process. Please just reach out, and I'm happy to talk to anybody and make sure that you're aware of what your options are, or we can talk about how I might help you and whatever your struggles are right now.
Yeah, we put you in that situation, Jamie. You know, we love to partner with you, and we love to do it. We'll always
back at you.
We'll always go to you in our webinars and ask you what's going on. Bottom line, Poulsbo, Bremerton, Port Orchard. If you run a business there, you've been negatively impacted by COVID, there's a grant, and you're probably available for it. Email kitsapsbdc@wwu.edu to get in touch with Jamie. And moving on to our final slide, we are very available at KEDA. I'm Morrison at Kitsap EDA, Teresa's Mangrum at Kitsap EDA, Kathy's Kokos at kitsapeda.org. Get in touch with us and let us know how we can serve you better. We'll see you next month for long-term care insurance. David Beck from One Strategic Capital will join us, and covering the cybersecurity angle, and yes, you need it, is Dan Whedon from First Underwriters, I think it is. All right, thanks for your time. See you next month. We appreciate you. Stay safe out there and enjoy this summer. Bye-bye.